Welcome to Sports Connection. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. Got a very special guest as my co-host today, Coach Will Hester. Tate's out on assignment, so for Coach Hester, this is good news and bad news. I know he's excited about being the co-host, but the bad news is that means he's packed the stuff up, season's over, you got a little bit more time than you're used to having.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got the call today, so a little disappointed, but, it is what it is. Only one team's going to be happy when this thing's all said and done.
That's right. So being asked to be the co-host this time of year is sort of like being a middle reliever.
Yeah, I guess. Unfortunately for Tate, though, he may never be asked back after this.
Oh, okay, good. I'm excited. Listen, I know you'll step up. We miss Tate, but we know you'll do a good job.
But do you really miss him?
Yes, we miss him.
Okay.
We definitely miss him. But we're talking football, so what better person to have here than you, Coach? So, and plus, I know you'll be honest. You won't give it total coach speak. When I say who do you think's going to win these particular games, you're just going to say this is why.
Oh, absolutely. I have a bone to pick with a few of these guys anyway. So,
which will be great. Let's talk classifications real quick, Coach, because this came out. It's not in stone yet. People can
this week
turn in complaints, and we don't want to be with this team and that team. Although I think ours are going to be pretty solid, because I doubt if there's anybody saying, hey, can you redo our region and make sure Williamson County is with us?
Yeah, there's nobody begging to come in with us. There may be some people begging to get out, but nobody's begging to join us.
So a couple things I like here, Coach. If you look at 6A, which we knew was going to happen, all of our 6A teams are together. We knew that would happen. We did add a 6, which does help you a little bit with scheduling. So we've got Brentwood, Franklin, Indy, Ravenwood, Summit, Centennial moves out to 5A. We add Overton, which means now you've got to find 5 games to schedule. But the thing that stood out to me that I really like, and I know you like, in the playoffs, the Memphis traveling's over till at least later in the playoffs.
Yeah, we go back to being Region 6, which we were kind of historically. First time ever that we've been 7 this last 2 cycles. So, yeah, moving back to Region 6 is a big deal now. Financially, it's the biggest deal. You're not looking at, 2 or 3 $10,000 trips to Memphis come playoff time. So you may still have to make one, depending on whether it's an odd or an even year come the semifinals. But in the end, I think it was solely based off geography, right? Overton is the closest one to us, as far as the map says, and so they were the logical one to add to our group.
And so that other region that we match up with in the playoffs, Antioch, Cane Ridge, Laverne, McGavock, Smyrna, Stewart's Creek. Now, historically, this means we're not probably losing in the first round. Now, Cane Ridge has been really good.
Cane Ridge is really good, and may, we'll talk about it a little bit later, may be a team that has a chance to be in the finals come this year. They got a couple of tough games left, but Cane Ridge has proven to be year in and year out probably the class of that group. Smyrna this year has one dynamic player playing running back and linebacker, which has kind of elevated their game. And Stewart's Creek has been up and down. They're a playoff team out of the Murfreesboro League this year, so I would expect Cane Ridge, Smyrna, Stewart's Creek to be in that top 4 each and every year.
And I'm betting when they saw their region matchup, they weren't as excited as maybe we are.
I think, to be honest with you, I think anybody that gets to go west that maybe didn't think they were going to is excited about it. Right, wrong, or indifferent, the west path is a little easier than the east, generally speaking. So getting sent west is not a bad deal.
But we like staying here because of travel and
100%.
And we tend to be those
we're always going to be west, right? So those guys kind of cross the line. I'd much rather would be 6th and 7 because of that travel piece. And, in the end, we're going to have to play our way back through our league either way. So this one is going to save us the most money.
In 5A, I'm curious what you think here. So there was some concern that maybe our 3 wouldn't be together. I think maybe in some cases they may have wished they split up. But I personally, as the district AD, sort of like that we're in that same region together. So we've got Centennial, Nolensville, Page, Glencliff, Hillsboro, and the school formerly known as Hillwood, James Lawson High School, in that particular region. What do you think about that one?
Well, just calling it as I see it, I don't see a scenario where our 3 teams don't make the playoffs every year. Now, who's 1, who's 2, who's 3, who's 4 may be in question. But looking over the course of the last 15 to 20 years, a couple of those teams that they're playing now out of Metro have struggled to even field a team. I believe there's a couple of years that Glencliff didn't even field a team. So obviously it is good for them from a making the playoff standpoint. Now, financially, is it a good thing? And, are you getting ready for the playoffs by playing some of that competition? I don't know. That's where their non-region schedule will have to be kind of tough.
I agree. And obviously I'm biased about this, and I understand football with the physicality of it and that type of thing, but I would like to see those 5A schedules littered with some of our 6A teams for gates and excitement. Because I think what does happen, and again, I'm not going to make somebody schedule for them, but what does happen, if you don't play each other, you sort of lose what we have that's so special here.
Absolutely, and I think they're going to. I think they'll play 2 or 3 of our 6A schools out there. I don't know that any of them will choose to play us, but they will play some of the other ones, and I think that'll help them kind of keep 5 or 6 Williamson County games on their schedule, which will be good for the district.
Why are they? Why not y'all?
I guess, getting to the north end of the county is difficult from a travel standpoint. But, there are a plethora of reasons why one may choose not to play.
So take a look at the playoffs now for this group. So they're going to be lined up with Columbia, Franklin County, Lawrence County, Lincoln, Shelbyville, Spring Hill, Tullahoma. I like their path as well. Now, thinking ahead a little bit, this is kind of high level thinking. If you're our 3 teams, let's just assume we finish 1, 2, and 3. I'd rather be 2.
Why is that?
Because if they do it by seeding, that their 1 should play our 2, but their 1's going to be potentially out. In other words, our 1 and 3 will play each other in the second round. You see what I'm saying?
Correct.
If you're 2,
yes.
You're going to get lined up with one of those other teams.
Yeah, maybe. But you don't know what those other teams are going to be. I mean, Page has kind of been in that league, right? And it's kind of been the class of that league the last few years. Nolensville was kind of in that league as a 4A school. Lawrence County was in there. Spring Hill was in there. Tullahoma was in there. So there's a lot of, I guess, knowledge of those teams. So I think it's set up well for them, and it'll be interesting to see how it all sorts out. But once again, it's going to be unfortunately, Williamson County on Williamson County kind of head-to-head crime there in order to get to the semifinals.
Let's take a look at 3A. So Fairview pretty much stays the same, except there's one team that's missing that has been the class of that league. It's been Waverly. So now it's Fairview, Cheatham County, Stewart, Sycamore, White House, Heritage. No Waverly. So most years that means it's going to be Fairview or White House, Heritage, I'm assuming. And then you look at their playoff path, East Nashville, Liberty Creek, Maplewood, Republic, and Stratford. So I think some of the best Fairview teams, that looks okay too.
It does. And, you feel a little sorry for Liberty Creek, right, getting thrown in there with that brand new school with some amazing facilities, and now you're going to have 100 people at each of your games based off of the way those other schools travel. So, I mean, it's going to be difficult for them to keep making money. They're going to have to play a heck of a non-region schedule. But, Fairview's league, they're all familiar with those teams. They've played them for years. They're probably, if I was Coach Hughes, probably look at keeping that Waverly game as a non-region game just because it's been such a competitive game. And in the end, that's probably a team that you may have to see down the road. So, obviously, I think it's set up for them as well.
So he's got 6 games to schedule, whereas you guys have 5. That's bad enough, right?
Yep.
He's got to come up with 6 games. That just seems odd to me that you would have this schedule of 10 games and only 4 of them really matter.
Yeah, I mean, this is that argument for what, remember the old Z plan, right?
Right.
Throw everybody back in there. Let's help them with their schedule, and then we'll sort it out come the playoff time. I mean, there's pros and cons to all of this stuff. And, if you're a team that can find games, and Christendom can probably find games, but, travel is going to be a concern. How far are you going to have to go to play? You're going to have to go to Lewis County or something like that in order to get games. What are you going to have to do to play teams about your size?
Well, and I would say this, he runs into what you guys run to in 6A. The people that are close to him probably don't want to play.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Because they've
been good.
They've dominated those teams. Let me also mention this. I don't have this as something we were going to talk about, but I think you know this. When you're talking basketball, baseball, volleyball, soccer, look at some of those other sports, we're all in the same league together.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the basketball, baseball guys were probably shocked by that. I think they thought going in that they would be split up. There was some thought, there was some rumors out there that maybe Nolensville will be pulled into Rutherford County and some of that kind of stuff. I think it's great that we're all in there together. I don't know that they would agree with that, but I think it's set up that if you're one of the 4 best teams, you may be punching your ticket into the region semis and finals just because of the way that we're matched up, especially in baseball and basketball, which is going to mean 2 Wilco teams probably get in the sub-state with the chance to go have 2 teams in the state tournament, which is, all you can ask for.
So largest district in the state, which seems kind of bad. But if you look at it, you look at Metro Nashville. So we were sort of matched up with that Metro Nashville schools. Now they're all together, and we're all together, which makes total sense if that can happen. Also, our region's not quite as tough. It's Coffee County, Lincoln, some of those. It's not the Nashville.
Yeah, it's basically those 5A playoff football schools, right?
That's right.
You're kind of matching up with those guys, which is going to create some natural rivalries. Those games, now you may play them in the fall and then see them again in the wintertime when it comes basketball. So, a lot of those kids playing both sports is going to make for a little juicier rivalry, a little more intensity maybe.
I think it will too. Again, I know for individual sports and individual situations, they may feel a little bit different. But as the district AD just taking a look at it, I like it because it forces us to play one another.
And it helps you on your travel on a Tuesday or Friday night if you're staying here in the county.
Hey, and everybody's. Because that's something that everybody's been talking about too. Look, travel's getting tougher. It's harder to get buses. It's harder to leave when we need to. Well, this solves that.
100%.
Which I like. Let's take a look just real quick, and I won't put you on the spot here with bowling stats, but I did want to give a bowling update because we're in the middle of bowling. We'll have the district tournament before Christmas, and then afterwards they'll play. They'll have the region. Franklin's boys and girls both 9-0. Now, my man Ted Logan, I don't know if you know Coach Logan, he has carried the flag for bowling. He was one of the guys that said, we need to have it in middle school. He'd been talking about it for a while. I go to their bowling meetings. He's like, who's playing JV? And there's some people going, JV, hold on, Coach Logan. But he's one of the reasons this thing has been so strong. You can see it, them being 9-0. On the girls' side, Independence is 8-1, Brentwood in second. On the boys' side, it's 6-3. So you've seen the growth of that sport since you've been here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And obviously, Coach Logan is trying to do it right. He's trying to build a program and not just have, a bowling club that goes out and has to compete in games. And, that's probably what the TWSAA had envisioned when they started this thing is that, people like him would have the vision of building it up right and treating it just like any other sport.
And on that boys' side, I failed to mention, Nolensville and Centennial both 6-3 as well. And like you're saying, so Coach Popovich, there's some others too that have been there, but scheduling lots of practices just like every other sport does. Rather than just let's meet on Tuesday and Thursday and bowl and I'll see y'all later, it's becoming more of a
And I'm a giant fan of any sport you can participate in while eating chili cheese fries is got my vote.
Now that goes against what we really want to see, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, hold on a second and grease all over the ball.
It may make it slide down the lane better. You don't know.
Fantastic, Coach. All right, let's talk a little football. It's one of the reasons you're here. Second round of the playoffs. What we're going to do is this. We're going to talk about the 2 games we won a little bit more than the 2 we lost.
Of course. Why would we not?
So we're going to start with Nolensville, White County, a game that we both attended this past Friday night. It was an absolute shootout. Nolensville 56, White County 36. The game starts off, Nolensville 2 quick scores, go up 14-0. I believe there was a turnover in there.
Yeah, Malachi Dowell fumbles the ball in the opening drive. Really kind of has it taken away from him by Jordan Burrows and returned to the 10 or 15-yard line, and Nolensville scored pretty quick after that. But very exciting game. Lots of athletic trainers, got a lot of running on and off the field, some guys getting banged up, hard-hitting game. But I would say that, in the end, the better team probably won. But, kudos to White County for what they were able to do, especially running the football. Maybe attempted 2 passes all night, if I remember correctly.
Right. 0 for 2.
And I don't know that, one of them, the ball didn't even leave the quarterback's hand. He ended up getting sacked, I think, on that last play before the half. But, 568 yards, basically 100% of it on the ground, which I think it was, and 250 yards each for the tailback and the quarterback. To be honest with you, I thought going into the game, had White County played a team as physical as Nolensville, would they really be able to run the ball like they have on everybody else? They did, and it was super impressive. And that quarterback's just a junior. He's coming back next year, and he was a special player.
Let me ask you, because I was very fascinated by this. I was talking to you and Coach Coleman about this on Friday night. To me, I'm always impressed when you see a team like White County. You know they're going to run. They know they're going to run. They run it anyway, and they run it effectively. That goes back to that execution thing I think you always talk about. It doesn't matter if you know what I'm going to do. You still got to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest of programs have been that way. You know what I mean? The Riverdale programs of the Gary Rankin era, you knew exactly what they're going to do. They just did it better than you. And, same with the Maryvilles of the world and the Oakland now with the Wing T. You know what they're going to do. Can you stop it? And, sometimes you can't. When they literally execute at a higher level than you because they're going to do these 3 or 4 or 5 things perfectly, sometimes no matter how well you prepare, it's super difficult to stop.
Look at those total yards, Coach. 583 for Nolensville, 568 for White County. We were talking about this before we came on the air. Something that stood out to me, I had to do a double check on this and a double take. White County has 84 plays. Nolensville has 47. So because Nolensville was scoring so quick, and you're not going to tell your offense not to score quickly, and because White County ran so many plays, that probably got into to the legs, so to speak, of that Nolensville defense because they spent quite a bit of time on the field.
Yeah, the positive is, though, Nolensville's got it to a point in their program where they're a 2-platoon team. So those guys on defense are not having to play offense. Now, they did play twice as many snaps as those guys on offense. So today, they're probably a little more sore, right? They're probably going to have to do some stuff to stretch their legs out and all those kinds of things. But because that program has been built in such a way that they have 22 starters, if you will, I would dare to guess that most of the teams on White County's schedule this year had to play both ways, or a lot of those kids had to play both ways, and thus that would have been a lot more devastating if you're playing 120 snaps and 87 of them you're getting leaned on by that big offensive line of White County having to tackle those 2 dynamic backs. So I think that played into it a little bit, but anytime you can snap the ball and every time you snap it, you get more than 10 yards, that's every time you snap it. I mean, 47 plays for 583 yards. You know what I mean? That's good odds the ball's going to find a way in the end zone as long as you don't put it on the ground.
Well, and listen, 4:23 left in the game. This game is 42-36. But like he's done all year, Fitzgerald made a great play.
I mean, it's all about finding a way to get him to the ball. I realize most teams are probably going into the game saying, where's one? All eyes on one, and one being the number Chance Fitzgerald wears. But, there are other guys, as Tate likes to refer to Mr. Touchdown Samson Johnson.
Absolutely.
I think he had 3 more this week.
That's right.
Obviously, Kobe Walton spreading the ball around and getting into all those guys, and you can't do any of that without a great offensive front. But, Chance Fitzgerald, when given the opportunity, can take a game over.
Mr. Touchdown Johnson was 18 carries, 188 yards for those 3 touchdowns. Zion Tomaska, 111 yards. He also had a touchdown. Walton, 4 touchdowns through the air. More importantly, I think, no interceptions.
And that's what playoff football is all about. You cannot win games getting penalties and turning the football over. They took care of the football and thus came out on top.
Let's talk about their opponent this week, Page. Everybody's excited about Nolensville and Page potentially playing again. It seems like when people talk it up, though, something happens and someone gets beat. Page goes down at Mount Juliet early, 10-0, but then they storm back. They take a lead at the half, 21-10. Caden Walker gets a touchdown. Then they block a punt. They get a score from Colin Hurd from 7 yards out. Then the very next play for Mount Juliet, they get a scoop and score, Jason Hoth. All of a sudden, they're up 21-10 at the half. It looks like, okay, it's fine. Second half, Mount Juliet blocks a couple of punts, takes the lead 24-21. That thing went back and forth. Fortunately for us, Page comes out on top 42-39. Now let's talk about this. 3 big-time special teams plays. 1 for Page, 2 for Mount Juliet. When teams are that close, a lot of times that's a difference maker.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, to have 2 against you and still win the game says a couple of things. 1, you were probably the better team to begin with, and maybe even significantly better, because usually when you have those mistakes happen, you can't overcome them. Maybe because they had one cancel it out because they had one of their own, right? So it really only to be in a -1, if you will, on special teams plays. But, as we move on into the year, those kinds of things will be the things that keep you from going to Chattanooga, right? So you got to find a way, to cut those out. I'm sure Coach Rathbone, that'll be a point of emphasis this week is, hey, we can't have any more of that. We survived it once, may not survive it again. But, think back to the first time these two teams played. Overtime game comes down to the very end. I don't expect it to be any different this time. Back at the same place, back at Nolensville again, because they were the region champs and won that game earlier in the year, which happened to be at home. They get to host it again. I imagine it'll be an unbelievable atmosphere out there. But, these are what Williamson County Sports Conference wants, right? Super meaningful games between two of our teams with a trip to the Final Four on the line and either playing Springfield or Henry County. You cannot ask for anything better than that.
No, I'm excited about it, Coach. Looking at some stats there for Page. Colin Hurd, 13 for 19, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caden Walker, who stepped up in the absence of Ethan Cunningham. Ethan hadn't been able to play. 25 carries, 116 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Brendan Ains, also 72 yards rushing. He also, on the defensive side, 3 tackles for loss, which were big on that side. And have you seen Page play this year? Probably hadn't, have you?
We've seen him on film. We had a common opponent in Independence.
Okay.
So we saw him on film.
What about
Eric?
Eric?
And actually Franklin. So we've seen him on film twice.
What about Eric Hazard, number 40 on the defense, sophomore?
So I have a history with Eric Hazard.
Okay, let's hear it.
His older brother, Austin Burt, played for us in the 2014 state championship team that went to the state championship game. So I remember Eric when he was a little bitty kid. The fact that he's playing at Page is a disappointment to us. We wish he was a Raptor. But nonetheless, know his family very well. His father played at Mississippi State. Very, very talented young man. And this is just his sophomore year. He jumped on the scene last year as a freshman, making lots of plays in their state finals team last year. But to see 2 sacks and a block put out of him, just kind of almost to be expected at this point out of his career.
Receiving, and I thought this was big. We knew he was going to come back. Boy Smith has a big game, as he has all year. 6 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Max Collins, who did not play the previous game against Nolensville, makes his return, 3 receptions, 71 yards. I think him being back, maybe that's the difference. At least Page hopes so.
Yeah, you never know. There's only one football, right? So only one of those guys can have it in any given play. So, it's going to be, who does he take those plays from, right, that may have made plays the first time in order for it to go around. I think it's going to be a phenomenal football game. Quite frankly, the last team that has possession of the ball may be the team that comes out on top of this thing. It's going to come down to penalties and turnovers and all the things that are coaching cliches will play a factor in this game. I'll tell you one thing that will also is the weather. It's going to be nice and chilly out there again, which it wasn't on Friday when we woke up Saturday. That fall chill was in the air. So, it's a little bit different. Taking those licks when it's a little cooler outside, your body responds a little bit differently. And both these teams love to throw the football. So which team can run it the best, may be the difference in the game, because throwing it in these conditions gets harder and harder the colder it gets.
Very well said, Coach. All right, let's talk a little quicker about these other 2 games. Brentwood, our last remaining 6A team, they travel to Bartlett. They lose 28-7. They were outgained 340 to 132, so that's not a recipe for success for their team. Brentwood, they did cut it to 14-7. Adam Fontesha gets a 5-yard rushing touchdown late in the third, but what happened next really was a killer.
Yeah, you can't follow that up with a kickoff return for a touchdown by your opponent. These special teams plays are quite frankly differences in the games when they happen. Just like when you're that coach that may be outmatched a little bit or trying to find a way to steal a possession, whether it be blocking a kick or getting a fake or returning a kick of your own, that's a way for a team who maybe on paper is not the best team to find a way to steal a victory. Bartlett was a good football team, obviously the 1 seed out of Memphis that Brentwood had to play, but to give them that advantage, a little bit of having a special teams touchdown, was super tough to overcome. But great defensive football team. Brentwood played unbelievable defense all season long. They were up and down a little bit offensively, which I think in the end, maybe kept them from advancing a little bit further. But a great year by Coach Finch and rallying those guys and found a way to battle through some injuries and adversity just like everybody does to get to the second round.
Grant Nelson comes in, 1-year quarterback for them, 14 for 30, 128 yards. I was impressed, too, how he jumped right in, got to the school late. He's a senior. Give those guys credit. Obviously, he's a good player, but I think that's tough when somebody else is expected to play quarterback, and then all of a sudden you got this new guy. Seemed to work out well. They finished 8-4. Something that surprised me, Coach. When I'm not necessarily surprised, I was just impressed by this. And we talked about this last week. Brentwood, 21 times in 25 years, they've made it to at least the second round.
Yep.
That's impressive.
Super impressive. That's a strong streak. Speaks, to Coach Crawford and what he had built there before he left, and then what Coach Finch has carried on since he's taken over. So, obviously, a lot of great football been played over there.
Our final game, Fairview, we knew it was going to be tough. They traveled to Smith County. They come up short 28-6 for the second straight year. Smith County eliminates Coach Hughes in Fairview. This time it was in the second round last year, the first round. Smith County jumps out early, 14-0. You're on the road. It's tough when the team's probably better than you anyway. You've traveled. You're playing at their place. Can't get in the hole early, and that's what happened to them.
And I don't know if you've ever been to a football game in Carthage, Tennessee. But
I have not. I've driven through Carthage, and I try to drive a little faster when I'm.
Be careful, they'll pull you over. But great atmosphere, the cool little high school stadium, no track around it, so the fans are right on top of the field. It's one of those cool small town places to play and go watch a game. But Coach Hughes and those guys, anytime you match up against the one, especially someone who had beaten East Nashville to win that league. East Nashville, put it on a 6A team in our league this year, and a very good football team, a defending state finalist team. We knew it was going to be a tough test for Fairview to go up there and get the win, but another great season by the Yellow Jackets.
8-4 again. They're going to miss guys like Crawford Claxton, had a great career, and then Layden Grant, who's done it really for them too, both sides of the ball. All right, here's what I want to do. We've only got one game to pick in the county, but I want to get your thoughts about the rest of the playoffs in 5 and 6A. If you take a look at that 5A bracket, and we'll talk specifically in a minute about the Page-Nolensville winner who you have, but forget that game for now. How do you see 5A playing out? We've got Daniel Boone, Knoxville West, Powell, and Oak Ridge at the top of the bracket, Page-Nolensville, Henry County, Springfield at the bottom.
Well, Knox West beat Maryville, beat Alcoa. They're 12-0. I think Knox West comes out of the top part of the bracket. I definitely think they win this week. They'll get the winner of a Powell-Oak Ridge game. That'll be a close game. Could be either one of those guys. But I think Knox West comes out of the top side, the east side of the bracket. And quite frankly, I think they do it pretty easily.
What about our winner? Do you feel pretty good about who wins that game up against Henry County Springfield?
Yeah, and so Henry County beat Springfield in overtime, almost mirror images of each other, the two games here. Henry County Springfield was an overtime game that Henry County won at Springfield. Page-Nolensville was an overtime game that Nolensville won at home against Page. Both those games are going to come right down to the very end. I would suspect, though, our team's going to have to go on the road for Thanksgiving, coming off of that. So that's going to be difficult. Going to Paris, Tennessee is never an easy thing, right? Springfield would be a little bit easier, but I expect Henry County to beat Springfield. And like I said, I think it's literally a coin toss on Page and Nolensville, whoever has the football last. But I do feel like, even on the road, the Williamson County team should prevail in the semis.
What about against
Unfortunately, I think Knox West is kind of the head and shoulders better team in the 5A bracket.
And really, not that we would just say, oh, they've got it, I'm not going to worry about it. Knox West would have a pretty good chance in the 6 bracket.
100%. I mean, they didn't just beat Maryville. They put it on them.
Yeah.
And Alcoa is another, well-oiled machine who they put it on as well. So.
What are you seeing on the 6A side, Coach? So we got Science Hill, Maryville at the top of the bracket with Blackman, Oakland. Then you've got Beach, Cane Ridge, Germantown, Bartlett at the bottom.
Yeah, even though Maryville's lost 3 football games in the regular season this year for the first time since, Moby Dick was a minnow, I still believe that they get to the rematch with Oakland that everybody's kind of been asking for. There are some people out there that think that Blackman may clip Oakland. I am not one of those people. I think Coach Teigart's done a good job of bringing Blackman football back, but I don't think it's back to the level that Oakland is. And we did see Oakland head-to-head early in the year. They're a pretty good football team. So I think you get the Oakland-Maryville rematch in the semis, and I think Oakland wins that just based off of score watching and what we've seen so far this year. Down in the bottom, Beach Cane Ridge, I think it's going to be an unbelievable football game. It's a Cane Ridge team with one loss on the season to Father Ryan, which is kind of, you don't even know what to think about that loss per se, because Father Ryan didn't have the greatest of years. Cane Ridge does have a win over Pearl, who's unbelievable, has a win over CPA, who's been up and down, who beat Oakland earlier in the year. So that Beach Cane Ridge game is going to be a very good game. Might be one worth driving over to Antioch or to Cane Ridge to watch, right? Bartlett, Germantown, I am a little biased in this based off of who I've had to play this season. I think Germantown was and always was the best team in Memphis this year. They lost 2 games in the regular season, both without their University of North Alabama commit quarterback. I know what it's like to try to play without a quarterback at certain times, and it's difficult. Germantown is playing really, really good right now. I expect Germantown to clip Bartlett in this, and I expect Germantown to play Oakland for the state championship.
Who wins the Beach Cane Ridge game?
That's a tough one. I think both these guys are great football coaches. I think both of them do a wonderful job. I really know less about Beach than I know about Cane Ridge. I've seen Cane Ridge on film a little bit. Cane Ridge is dynamic from an athletic perspective. But, I'm going to go with Beach just because of what I've kind of the score watching and the teams they beat. They physically dominated a Brentwood team in our league who had played great, great defense all year long. So I'll go Beach, Germantown in the semis with Germantown coming out on top.
And winning the whole thing?
I don't think they beat Oakland.
Okay. Oh, I thought you said Oakland would beat Germantown.
Yeah.
Okay. Coach, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
You know your stuff, which, you better.
It's kind of my job to do that.
Hey, let's talk about our pick'ems. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but our fans can keep voting at WCS CO Athletics on Twitter. We've been doing this all year. Coming into our one game we're picking this week, the fans have 61 wins for the year. Dr. Qualls, 62 wins. I have 63 wins, and Tate has 69 wins. So obviously, that side of the table has known more and done a little better. Now, I will say this. I tend to sometimes pick the Williamson County team when Tate's like, whatever. Although I've been known to pick against us too.
Well, do you want to keep people happy or do you want to be right? Which one is it? This is what you got to decide.
I'd like to get both, but if I'm trying to win, I'd rather be right, but obviously it didn't work out for me this year. Let's talk about this, though. So I know I asked him before the show. Tate and Dr. Qualls are both picking Nowensville in this game. I am picking Page. Early in the year, I told Page after a couple weeks, I said, look, I'm picking you till you lose, and I'm going to keep picking you. I'm going with Page in this one. I think Max Collins being back makes a difference. I don't believe in all this. You can't beat somebody twice. I don't believe that. I've never believed that in basketball or any other sport. If you're better, you're better. I don't think the first game has anything to do with this game.
But you're picking that way.
I am picking that way, but also picked them last time.
I don't know if you kept up with it. Page did lose, and you said you were picking them until they lost. They lost to Independence 30-0.
And then I added, I'm going to keep.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I truly believe it's a coin flip. If I had to wager my salary on it one way or the other, I don't know which direction I would go, to be quite honest with you. Maybe the home team has an advantage. I don't know. But in the end, I do think it matters from a motivation standpoint, having, going in as the underdog or as the team that lost the first time. I think there's something to that. And, as you mentioned, they're getting some guys back that didn't play the first time, or they will have some guys that didn't play in the first game. So
you are picking?
I'm not picking. I'm not on your sheet. I'm not picking either one of those guys. There is no Coach Hester line on the pick'em.
Well, let's say this, though. When you talk about going to be difficult to throw it, those kind of things, when you look at these two teams on the offensive and defensive line, to me, this is just me, what do I know, I feel like Page looks more like a 6A team on the offensive and defensive line. I think they're a little bigger. Obviously, Coach Darrin and his staff, they do a great job offensively and defensively. I think that might matter with the throwing the ball being a little bit tougher. I think Walton throws it a little better than Hurd, although Hurd's done a great job. But I think that plays in Page's favor too.
Yeah, possibly. I think if you look at season totals running the football, Mr. Touchdown has had a pretty good year running the football. And then Tamaska has has had some big runs. I think he had a 70-yarder to close out the game
right. He did.
the other night. So that's a heck of a 1-2 punch in the backfield. So I think both teams can run the football. So I agree that may be the difference in the game, but I don't know that it's a clear-cut advantage one way or the other.
Well, and I think you're right. Honestly, I'm picking. Got to pick someone, but I think it's really a coin toss. I do, and maybe home is the difference.
Yeah, maybe. It absolutely may be.
It's going to be a great game. You guys get a chance, make sure you head out there and watch it. Coach, I appreciate you filling in today.
Thanks, man.
Great insight.
I try.
Thank you for joining us for Sports Connection. We'll see you next time.